This is Cindy Eriks with Eriks Environmental, and you're watching this video because you just received your mold assessment and protocol report after requesting a mold inspection or assessment. In Florida, we call them mold assessments. That's how the state names our license. And speaking of license, it is required by the Florida 468 statutes that anyone that performs a mold inspection or assessment is a licensed mold assessor in the state of Florida. And if anyone is going to remediate your property, they need to be a licensed mold remediator. Now, there are exclusions that have to do with contractor licensing that I won't even try to get into. But if your contractor that's not a licensed mold remediator tells you that they can do your mold remediation, then you need to be real certain that they really know what they're doing. I run into it frequently where they say they know what they're doing, but they really don't know. They just think they know what they're doing. I have a video on my YouTube channel that says don't hire your contractor to mold remediate. And it goes into a little bit more detail about why. In any event, I want to just educate you a little bit about your report. I believe out of every report I've seen, and I've seen many, I've been in business in Tallahassee. It'll be 32 years next month. And as a home inspector, and then for almost 22 years as a mold inspector, mold assessor, writing mold protocol. And I believe that the report that we write for you is more explanatory than any other report you're going to see. While our report may be a lot of pages and has a lot of information in it, you'll find that many other companies' reports may have a lot of pages with a lot of information in it, but a lot of information that you just don't understand. So I want to explain a few things about our report because we get frequent questions, and I want to make sure that you, as my customer, and by the way, thank you for being our customer. Thank you for trusting us with your home or your office or your commercial space. We appreciate you, and we want to do the absolute best job for you. That's our goal. Our company motto is that we care, and we really do care. So you'll see in the beginning of the report, it has just common information about the property, your name, and then why we were called to the property most of the time. Sometimes it doesn't have the reason why we were called there if the information is kind of vague. Sometimes people just want to have a mold inspection if they're just buying a property and they want to make sure that there's nothing detectable, because we do find things in even the nicest looking houses. We do find that there's evidence of hidden mold. So anyway, you'll have that general information, and then you'll have visual observations that we found when we went through the building. Now, most of the time we're going to go through the whole house or building, every single room. Sometimes people don't let us go everywhere, and therefore we can't go everywhere. But when we can't go everywhere, that means we can't look everywhere to make sure there's no mold that you're not aware of. So people like to call us out for limited inspections, and there is an exception to every single thing I say. I'll always tell you that. But generally speaking, we want to look at the entire building, because frequently occupants or owners aren't aware of a problem. They're only aware of the problem they're calling us for, and there's another problem. And where this gets difficult is, number one, giving you a false sense of security about your house, for instance, if it's a residence. About your house and your home. If we find mold just in one area and we're only looking in one area, then you get peace of mind that's not true peace of mind, because there may be some mold someplace else that you just weren't aware of and you didn't know what kind of signs to look for. And frequently, a homeowner won't know what signs to look for. Many of the assessors out there don't know what to look for. Unfortunately, it's a sad situation. You can see a bunch of my videos about those problems that we're having with mold ethics and uneducated people and inexperienced people and unscrupulous people and so forth. But anyway, you're going to have what we saw, what we visibly observed at the time. And our visual observations are going to be based on what we see on surfaces, underneath vanities, underneath your kitchen sink, any place we can get with our equipment to see behind. Sometimes we can get behind the dishwasher and take a look, or a refrigerator. And what we see, what the visible signs are. Then we take moisture readings. So some of our visual observations may be with our moisture detector. We detected elevated moisture in a location, for instance, or humidity. We're going to check humidity because humidity is a key factor. So you're going to see the observations that we made. You also see observations where maybe we couldn't see everything because there's a lot of contents, a lot of personal items, a lot of furniture, and we don't move all your stuff around and we can't see everything because of that, especially if there's a lot of contents. Same thing with attics and crawl spaces. If there's ductwork or personal belongings blocking the view, then we just can't see what we can't see. But anyway, you'll have the visual observations. Then you have a page where it has the sampling. We use media, swabs, tape lifts sometimes, air samples, air sampling media, and then we take samples and we send them to the lab. And then they get overnighted to the lab, and then we get the results back. And it'll have boxes checked as what types of mold that you had in your sample, if they were in there. Elevated mold. There's going to be mold probably in every sample. Not every sample, but most of the time, every single sample is going to have some mold, because we have mold. We have mold in the outside air, and we bring it in. So just because there's some mold in there, that doesn't mean it's bad for you. So we're talking about elevated mold. So there's a whole page on that, and in that page I state really clearly, don't try to interpret the lab report. It took years to learn how to interpret a lab report. We write your protocol based on our knowledge about what that means. So you'll see in our conclusions and then the protocol what we recommend that you do because of what we observed with our eyes, observed with our equipment, infrared camera, moisture meter, and so forth, right? Humidity gauge, and what the laboratory samples come back as, the analysis comes back as. So don't try to interpret the labs. It's too difficult. It'd take a long time for me to educate you on sampling. But I will tell you this: you can go to the page where it says what levels we expect on the end when you get the remediation done. There's a whole list that says it needs to be within these parameters. So go to those parameters and compare those parameters to your lab test if you want to really look closer at it, because what you end up with, what we want you to end up with after your remediation is listed clearly there. And so that will be helpful to you. So we always encourage you to call if you have questions, but I'm hoping that this might solve some of that by me explaining how the report is written and how we write the protocol. There's photos attached that show every place we went and every problem we found. There'll be pictures of it, so that it illustrates that. The lab report will be attached, and there's another attachment which I think is about 3 pages that's in every single remediation report, and it says what the requirements are. That you have a licensed remediator, that engineering controls need to be in place. And these are the kinds of things that contractors don't know what to do unless they've been trained. If they've been trained, then they've got some kind of certification in mold remediation. That's what you're looking for if you do end up trying to hire your contractor, by the way. So at the end of that also, I add my indoor air quality guide for people, because we have humidity problems in the southeast, in Tallahassee, in the winter, and when you're not running your air. And there's more than that in that document, but how you manage and how you track and keep an eye on to see if there's any problems, and you catch them while they're a very recent problem, will prevent you from having to have a mold problem and expensive remediation. That's my goal, is to try to teach people how to avoid that, or how to limit their limit their exposure, limit their financial exposure or their physical exposure. So I hope this is helpful to you. Always feel free to jot down any questions, shoot us an email. My email is cindygeriks@gmail.com, cindygeriks@gmail.com. You can go to our website. We have a bunch of videos on the website also, and more information, indoorairqualitymatters.com. And we just, again, thank you so much for your business, and thank you for trusting us with the problem and your concerns in your home or your building. And just let us know if you have more questions. Thanks for watching.